Hey guys, just wanted to say I'm still donating 50% of the profits of my channel to the United Cajun Navy. They do such amazing work, and it is such an honor to support them. It's all made possible by you, my viewers. We have an amazing story here for you today, and if you like it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe for more. I'm really hoping to get to 10K subscribers by the end of the year. Now on to the story. Update. Warning. Mention of self-harm, attempted self-delete, fighting, bodily injury, and institutionalization. Listen at own discretion. It's been what, a year now? I didn't log back in for a long time because I thought I was done here. But then one day I decided what the heck and just popped back in again, only to see numerous private messages asking for updates. So I'll give one. What I'm about to tell you is mostly pieced together from what my parents and grandparents told me. So if it sounds too crazy, just remember I'm basically retelling what I found out. Yes, I am doing fine. But the same cannot be said for my parents and little sister. My sister, sometime after my previous post, attempted several things in order to get out of boarding school. After none of her lies and schemes got her anything, she tried to simply do nothing. But that didn't work out. Then she tried a hunger strike. She said she would refuse to eat anything unless our parents came and took her home. My mother nearly jumped in the car to go rescue her baby, but my father had to stand in her way and remind her my sister's behavior was their fault. My sister's hunger strike didn't even last 2 days before she was demanding food in the cafeteria. She wasn't allowed sweets or snacks unless they were healthy, especially since a pediatrician warned my parents that my sister, Little Miss Sunshine, was at risk of future diabetes and even possibly having her growth stunted unless she got her weight under control and ate foods with proper nutrients. As in, no more gummy bears on mashed potatoes. Of course, my sister tried becoming a bully to the other girls in the boarding school, but they didn't take her crap. One day, she picked a fight and got beaten up pretty badly when she was set upon by multiple other girls at once. And as a crowd, they kicked her until they were broken up by a teacher. My sister didn't suffer any serious injuries, but she was scraped and bruised all over. Yes, she blamed everyone else but herself. And I heard she actually stated that the other girls should just do as she says. They did not, so she was shunned by them. I heard she had quite the tantrum over it. She'd gotten her way with everyone for so long that it was mentally inconceivable for her to not get what she wanted. My mother repeatedly snuck junk food to my sister at the boarding school, and my sister got caught with it. My parents had a huge fight about it, but my mother didn't try to sneak her any more junk food once the jig was up. My sister was, and still desires to be, a junk food addict. That's right. She's barely changed in the past year. Are any of you really surprised? I'm not. She's only slightly better in the fact she's somewhat more accepting she's not the center of the universe. Her schemes to get out of boarding school only escalated. After only a few months there, she resorted to self-harm to try and get her way. She somehow got her hands on a knife in the cafeteria and stood on a table, threatening herself with it unless they gave her candy and sent her home. Yes, she didn't just demand to be sent home. She wanted candy too. I did say before that I'd seen her put gummy bears on mashed potatoes in my original post. Her favorite thing to put gummy bears on was on foods she didn't like, because that's the only way that our parents could get her to eat it. Can you imagine gummy bears on salad? It kinda defeats the point of salad. But she regularly brought a bag of gummy bears to the table when we ate. I can't even look at gummy bears without remembering. Well, my sister was brought what sweets they could scrounge up while they tried to talk her down, but at some point she slipped and fell off the table. The resulting fall broke her left arm, her clavicle, and she had a forehead concussion. At this point, even the boarding school had enough of her and didn't want her to return once out of the hospital. In fact, her attempt at ending herself only landed her in a worse place, a mental ward for children. She's been forced into therapy and diagnosed with a heavy case of narcissism she was raised into having. She cannot leave the ward unless my parents take her out. They've also forced her to continue her schooling from there and keep to a very strict healthy diet. It could literally be described as her personal hell. My mother wanted to go to the ward and get her precious baby out, but she and my father got in a huge fight about it. And in that fight, she hit him with the nearest thing she could grab, which happened to be a bottle that was on the kitchen counter. The bottle broke on his face, cracked his cheekbone, and cut him up pretty badly. Police were called, and he had to be taken to the hospital while my mother had to be carted away in the back of a police car. My mother ended up getting psyche evaluated and committed for several months herself, and she was forced to confront her own fierce desires to enable my sister. Turns out it stems from serious mental traumas my mother had from her own childhood, but no one else knows or will tell me anything more than that. There was, and still is, talk of future divorce from my parents, but neither of them have gone any farther than sleeping in separate bedrooms so far. As for me, well, my 19th birthday wasn't that long ago, My grandparents threw me a party at a restaurant they know I like. My parents attended, and so did my sister. She was briefly allowed time out of the ward, and I could see the pure bitterness in her eyes. She sat there looking just like before, lip curled and glaring at me like she wanted me to be on fire. She'd lost a fair bit of weight by then since she hadn't been allowed junk food for so long, and her diet plan is going to keep on for some time to come. In fact, the junk food from my birthday party was the first she'd had in a pretty long time, but she still couldn't stand not being the center of attention. This time when I blew out my candles, she did not scream. Instead, she began ugly crying. I can tell you right now that this was just more of her manipulation. She was just crying and saying why over and over again. I know she's only 9, but remember, last year she was 8 and demanding a car of her own just because I was gifted one at 18. She can't even get a learner's permit till she's 15. At my 19th birthday, my sister got on the floor to tantrum that there was no pizza, no gifts for her, no prizes, no nothing. Then she started cursing at our parents before trying to storm out of the restaurant. She was basically trying to copy what I did last year, in her own twisted way. You can say I'm thinking too hard about that, but I know my sister, and if she thinks doing something will get her way, she'll do it. My parents just apologized to everyone, and then took my sister home early, but not before my grandfather went over to speak to them. I got some details from my grandmother later. He told them that they better not take my sister to party elsewhere, or give her what she wants, because this will never end if they don't stop for good. After that, my sister was taken out kicking and screaming because she'd heard everything and realized her tantrums didn't work. She was driven back to the ward the next morning, and that's where she is now. I have no idea how much longer she'll be there. She's just a kid, but the most stubborn one I've ever seen. She'll likely not change until she reaches her lowest point, and until then, she's gonna be stuck in a place that does no enabling of her demands. No one, not even my parents, have attempted to put any blame on me for my sister's actions this past year. They've had to accept that I had zero fault in this, and they raised my sister to be a narcissist. And enabling a narcissist is also a form of addiction from what I've seen and heard. My sister has not been diagnosed with any sort of mental illnesses aside from narcissism. In fact, she's smarter than me from what I've heard. She was tested having an IQ of around 110. She just doesn't like to apply herself unless there's some kind of reward in it for her. She was raised this way, and I'm guessing it'll take years to make her better. As for me, well, I'm doing well on my own. I admit, I had to learn to properly budget and take care of all my own necessities. It's not easy to adult, but it's still 1,000 times better than the life I had living with my parents and sister. Relevant comments. Commentator asks about sister's IQ and mental illness. OP. I was told my sister's IQ was 110 by my father, and I tested lower than that as a kid. Doesn't really matter to me though. I've moved on with my life. Yes, my sister may be as you describe, but I'm no expert in mental illness. I specified that what I told here was mostly what I heard from family. The only part I experienced firsthand was her behavior at my 19th birthday. I'm likely kept in the dark about a lot, and I don't feel like pressing for more details. Though my father confided in me many times over the past year of my sister's behavior and actions, like her getting beat up for trying to be a bully. He and I have been meeting occasionally for lunch ever since my mother was temporarily committed herself. I honestly don't like my sister at all, and will probably feel that way forever. It's not complete hate, as I know my parents made her what she is. But what big brother wants their sister to be committed in a ward for life? Either way, I'll likely be in very low contact with her for the foreseeable future, no matter how much better she may get. I was mentally scarred by her, and she probably still wants me to be a princess. Update number 2. To start things off, I'm an idiot. Some of you questioned me saying my sister is smarter than me, pointed out loopholes in my posts, and all of that. Well, I had a D and C average in school, and math was my worst subject. It was pointed out I mistakenly repeatedly stated my sister's age wrong. I am at fault for that. I usually just tell people she's 10 years younger than me, and when talking about her, the numbers just often blurred together. I guess doing the math correctly on paper this time. I was technically 7 when my sister was born in June, and she first got to blow out my candles when she was 3. I am so bad at math, and it doesn't help I try to keep some details either vague or slightly wrong just to keep anonymous. But then in retrospect, this isn't exactly very anonymous because anyone in my family could read this and know it's me. I really screwed up, and from the moment my sister was born, everything was about her. This isn't just some lame, jealous older brother stuff. My sister may not have gotten to blow out my candles till she was 3, but even before that she was also celebrated just as much on my own birthdays, in front of everyone. And I grew extremely resentful. Imagine the birthday boy sitting there while his mother, just flaunts a baby in front of everyone because the gathering gave her an excuse to show off. I was basically ignored by my parents until it was time for cake. My grandparents made up the difference, so it wasn't such a bad memory at the time. They even told me it was slightly understandable because my sister had just been born a month prior, and my mother had such a hard time with the pregnancy. But then that's also how things went down my 9th birthday, and no one said or did anything about it. Then on my 10th birthday, my parents basically did the same thing and flaunted all of my sister's baby accomplishments before anything really happened for me. And then some of my gifts were obvious toddler toys that were only enjoyed by my sister. I remember them being called extra gifts, and even though my name was on them, they weren't for me. Again, no one in the family said or did anything about it. Then on my 11th birthday, that's when things became truly bad. There were gifts with my sister's name on them, and my parents insisted Little Miss Sunshine be allowed to blow out my candles. Everyone saw, and they all did nothing. And following this, the birthday venues were always oriented towards my sister, and sometimes she was even allowed to help me unwrap my presents too. It wasn't help, they just wanted me to placate her. Now multiply all of that to my 18th birthday, and you'll understand why I finally lost it on everyone back then. That's why I say my birthday was taken over for 8 years. But in reality, it was more like 10 years. My parents admitting fault really wasn't enough for me anymore after that. I try to act like I can forgive them, but I'm not sure I ever can. Someone else pointed out to me that you cannot be diagnosed as a narcissist until you're 18. I'm pretty ignorant about this sort of thing and took my father's word for it. So I called my father this morning and spoke to him about it. He first asked me how I knew, and I just responded with Google. He sighed and admitted my sister was showing signs of possible future NPD and some other things, but an official diagnosis can't be made yet. But there is also a strong possibility of a mental disorder my mother also apparently has, and they won't tell me what it is. My parents finally admitted my mother was diagnosed with both said disorder and PTSD months ago. The PTSD triggered from some childhood traumas my mother will not disclose, nor am I asking her to, because whatever it is, it's pretty bad. When I asked my father why I was told such simplified details and white lies, he got angry and told me it's because my sister is their problem and not mine. So he just thought I'd let it go if he told me that. Then he said they need to be the ones to worry about my sister. I just need to focus on my future and forget about having to deal with Little Miss Sunshine ever again. It's sadly one of the most logical things he's ever said to me. As for Little Miss Sunshine, there's no clear time frame on how long she will be in that ward. But I had another question for my father that someone else alerted me to hear, and that is if my sister has ever spoken of wanting to delete me while there. The answer was kind of a middle ground. My sister did blame me. However, she blames our parents more. Her main beef with me was her belief that what's hers is hers, and what was mine should also be hers. She's even jealous I have my own apartment now. That led to other rage tantrums and demands wanting the same things I have. Therapy has subsided her rage bit by bit over time, which is why she was allowed to be at my 19th birthday. But her behavior that day escalated all over again. Ever see a toddler say mine to anything it sees? Well, my sister has a mind complex with my birthday, and that's 100% on my parents. My sister did and still does believe she is entitled to my birthday because it's been that way as long as she could remember. That's why she screamed last year. That's why she freaked out this year. In her mind, my birthday has always been hers. My parents have asked me to please leave the situation alone, and that my sister is going to need a lot of time to be treated, and there's no guarantee she'll ever get better. My mother's in therapy herself, and her own disorder is medicated now, and she is often lethargic from the medication. She somehow didn't lose her job when she was temporarily put in a ward herself after hitting my father with a bottle. Her boss is a very sympathetic person and allowed my mother to work from home after getting back, although it resulted in lower pay and some kind of demotion. There is another detail I'd like to clarify that I did not mention in my last post. My birthday this year wasn't the actual date of my birth. Instead, we celebrated the day of the belated party that was held for me last year, which is fine with me, because the actual day of my birthday has been forever soured to me. I was born basically at the end of July. The belated birthday was held a week later in August, and that's the day I wish to celebrate from now on. Lastly, people keep asking how I am doing. I was doing fine, if not pretty decent. I admit it's been hard to adult, paying my bills, learning to manage my finances, and all that, but I was fine. Then somehow my coming back to Reddit to talk about this has made me stressed and, what's the term, mentally relapsing, I guess? I'm not sure. I thought I was all good, but now I'm edgy and cynical all the time. My boss even sent me home early for the day because of it. They're well aware of my past, but I still feel terrible. Just having coffee this morning sent my heart pounding. I think I'm gonna have to search local support groups for free counseling or something. I am on a budget after all. But for the moment, I'm just trying to relax and take my mind off life. I might end up stressed like this all over again if I return here someday. So I may not. I thank everyone who read my posts and understood my pain. You're good people, but I really need to get myself together and put my past behind me. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe for more stories like this, and comment your thoughts down below.